Just on Tadhg Furlong, how long more do you expect him to be out for?
Yeah, he's still got a bit of work to do, I think. Obviously, we definitely don't want to rush him back until he's ready. So, obviously, he's had a couple of setbacks now. So, I think this time, with every setback, we become more cautious, which is understandable. You want to make sure we get him right and he becomes back robust. He's training fine now. He's not training with the team, but he's in the gym and he's active and busy all the time. Obviously we want to try and get him back as soon as possible, but I certainly don't think it'll be in the next week or two. We're planning for certainly not for the Scarlets game, and obviously we've got Europe to come as well. So we've got a week off between now and then. So we'll see how he goes in that week off.
Yes, exactly. So do you expect to have him back for Europe?
Well, we don't know, because obviously we want to make sure he comes back. He's got to do a certain number of training sessions in order for us to consider him to be available to play in Europe, to be honest. So we need to get that box ticked first, and we're not at that point yet.
Okay, and we just had Dan Leavy in there. I mean, how do you think he's been since his comeback from that horrific injury?
Well, he's been great. I mean, in terms of just getting his presence back in the group. I mean, he's a natural leader, and he's really stepped back into that almost like he's never been away. I mean, it's amazing to achieve what he's achieved. I think he was frustrated not to have played earlier. In terms of we benched him a couple of times, and I think he was itching for a start. He's had a start now, a couple of starts, and he's got the start this weekend. So he'll benefit from that, playing the full 80. I think players who've been out for a long period of time have very high expectations of themselves, which is probably higher than I have personally. I remember Jack Conan coming back, and he was expecting to hit the ground running, and it never quite happens that way somehow. But his presence on the field has been excellent. To get man of the match, a week ago was good. I think this week, again, because he was playing an open side, there's a couple of things that I want to go through with him and keep working with him on. But he'll have another game this weekend. He'll be better for that. And, the competition for back row at Leinster is, fierce, which is an understatement. You've got lads like Caelan playing well for Ireland. You've got Josh van der Fleer, Will Connors to come back. Scott Penny's playing very well for us. Rhys Ruddock's been excellent. Jack Conan's going to be back soon. So Dan knows that he's going to have to train and play well here to get picked for Leinster first and foremost.
Just final one for me on Harry Byrne. A lot of talk of him that maybe he should have been brought up to the Ireland squad this week before that game against Georgia. Where do you think he is, Stuart, in terms of being part of the Ireland squad? How far off is he?
I don't think it's far off at all. And obviously, I think with Billy doing well when he came on, Ross getting an opportunity at Twickenham, I think it's right to stick with those two personally. And I think Harry's actually benefited from this window of being with Leinster permanently and just playing games from the start, not coming on off the bench or not even playing. So I actually think Andy Farrell's managed it really well, and I think that it's been really sensible from both parties to allow Harry to play here. I think he's benefited from a relationship with Kieran Frawley at 12, and I think Jimmy O'Brien and Kieran Frawley and Harry have been excellent together. In terms of Harry's future potential, I think he's an excellent player. I've coached lots of talented young fly halves who've, the English fly halves have coached, who are all, doing pretty well now. Harry's excellent. He's got temperament, he's got skill set, he's got ambition, he's a threat at the line, he's got a good kicking game. He's still got flaws in his game. His game understanding and self-confidence is great. So it's exciting. It's exciting for Ireland. He's not the only young fly half I see in Ireland that's got potential as well. And I think this is where perhaps the disappointment of the weekend's performance should be tempered with, the transition that Ireland are going through, and we've lost some senior players like Rory Best has finished, Rob Kearney's finished, Dev's obviously not getting selected now, and bringing younger players through and getting experience is all part of developing a test team for the future. And I think that's what Andy's doing with his coaching team. And Harry, I'm sure, will get his opportunity with Ireland, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
But don't tell his brother I said that.
It is a bit James Stewart. Like, oh, no, seriously, I want to ask. What is it like between that dynamic between?
No, they're both great players. I mean, they're both different, but they're both great in their own way. And so for me, I rate both of them highly, and it'll be very competitive with them. But there's a certain Johnny Sexton who's probably the ultimate competitor anyway. So it's a good problem to have.
Absolutely, nice one. Thanks, Stuart.
Stuart, good afternoon. Kieran Frawley had a very good game on Sunday night, and at times he played almost with his kicking game a number 10 role. But I know he's been groomed for centre. Is there a succession plan as such? And would you be looking at when some of the existing centres may step back, and then you have somebody who's in succession who's ready to take that place? Is that something that's there, and do you adhere to it?
It's probably a little bit simplistic to say we're grooming him as a 12, to be honest. I mean, obviously, given the personnel we've got, we've just mentioned them, Ross, Johnny and Harry at 10. The advantage of Kieran for me is that he can play 10 and 12. And I think that's a real asset in any player. You look at Owen Farrell and his versatility for England. He plays as well for England when George Foyes is at 10, and as well for the British and Irish Lions at 12 when Johnny played at 10. So to have someone like Kieran who can do both is a real asset. So we're actually developing him as both, really. And my personal belief is the more ball players you can have in your back line, the better. So him and Harry's relationship's only getting better and better by this window we've had together. And again, I would hold Kieran right up there with any of the young players I've coached as a 10 or a 12. He's come through the club system, and as a consequence, he's been a later developer, but his late development has been excellent. He's a good athlete, and he'll really be pushing hard for selection in the big European games when everyone's back. You've got obviously the likes of Robbie, who's out injured, but hopefully will be back soon. And Conor Bryan and other lads who can play in that Rory O'Loughlin in that 12 slot, but Kieran will be right up there pushing for that starting 12 slot in Europe, that's for sure.
And is there a succession plan as such? I mean, you've a lot of experience of bringing people through academies and what have you. Does it exist? Is there people earmarked at certain positions for the future?
Yeah. I mean that would be common sense and logical in my mind to have a succession plan. Any company or any organisation, if you don't plan for the future, then you're preparing to fail, really. Across the board, really, every time a young player steps into train with Leinster, we've got a young lad now, Jamie Osborne has started training with us, Max O'Reilly, lads who are there or thereabouts for Ireland 20s. Max O'Reilly played Ireland 20s, Andrew Smith played Ireland 20s. They're training with us now in this block, and you're already thinking, these are going to be great Leinster players in the future. And the problem for the senior players is you're always chasing someone above you, but then you've always got to keep looking over your shoulder at the young players coming behind you. So there is a succession plan, and rightly so. I think the more we invest in the young players, the more we promote them, the more we get competition for places, and the more we can make the best decisions for Leinster Rugby going forward. Yeah,
it's been a very unusual year, given COVID, etc. Do you think you're ready for European rugby so soon?
Yeah, I think it probably feels more normal for us, I guess, than perhaps everyone else, because we've been in work. I came back from the UK in the end of July, and pretty much, albeit there's differences in you've got to wear masks in meetings and things like that, but our rugby content and because of our testing and our procedures, and we've been very lucky not to have had any cases. We've been able to train, and play games as a normal week, really. So the difference, obviously, has been no spectators has been huge, for the impact on the players and for everyone in the community. But in terms of rugby, I feel like we're playing good rugby with the group we've got. The big challenge, I think, coming into Europe this time is normally you finish an international block and you have a week off. And in that week off, your players come back from Ireland and you can reintegrate them into your style and your systems of play and your calling system. Because, I think things are slightly different. The difference this time is that obviously Ireland play in the final game a week on Saturday against probably Scotland, and we play Montpellier the following Saturday.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us as coaches is to select the right team for the Montpellier game, which is a balance of this group of players that have gone so well in this window and played some really, really good rugby, and the reintegration of players, some of whom have started for Ireland, like Andrew Porter's played every game, etc., etc. So, or James Ryan, the reintegration of them, or maybe some of the lads who've been on the bench and not played as much, like a Josh van der Fleer or Will Connors. But then, you've just spoken to Dan Leavy, who wants to play, or Jack Conan, who's going to be fit, or Josh Murphy, or Rhys Ruddock. So I think in terms of our the way in which we're playing at the moment, I feel like we're definitely going in the right direction. We're playing good rugby. I think I'll tell you after the first couple of training sessions in the week leading into Montpellier whether we're ready for European rugby, because it's that piece that's going to be critical. But it's the same for every team. It's the same for every team in England. It's the same for the French teams. And the reality is, because of the nature of the European Cup, and we've only got 4 pool games essentially, you've got to win 3 out of 4 as a minimum. And if you can get an away win, if we get an away win at Montpellier first up, and then back that up with a home win against Northampton, then it puts us in good shape for the Interpros during, Christmas, and then back into Europe post Christmas. So it is different. It's not ideal not to have that window, but equally, I'm confident that the work we did with the Ireland players before they left, they'll be able to switch back into the way we want to play.
Indeed, you mentioned Devon Toner in passing there. Do you think Ireland could have done with some clean, guaranteed line-out ball last week?
Well, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, the line-out was a big area, and obviously it contributed to 7 of England's points. But I would say that any team goes through a period of transition, and international teams are no different. England's transition period pretty much happened in 2012 when I took over, and I picked pretty much a young team. I think we had 220 caps in the starting 15 that played in the first 2012 game, and even in the World Cup in 2015 it was 440, and now you're looking at an England team with 800, and lads who've got 60, 70, 80 caps, and Ireland are just in a slightly different part in their cycle. You lose Devon, you lose Rob Kearney, you lose Rory Best. That's 250 caps in 3 players. Yeah. So I think a little bit of patience and understanding, I think, wouldn't go amiss really, because with Henderson being injured, Johnny, Robbie, Gary, Jordan Lama, Dan Leavy, Jack Conan, Tadhg Furlong, there's some decent players there that weren't available this time, and that's not including some from the other provinces.
So in some ways, the Autumn Nations Cup has come at a good time, because you're playing quality games against known opposition.
I think from a coaching point of view, as you feel the pressure whenever you're coaching your team internationally, and you obviously you want to win every game, and it hurts so deeply when you don't win any game internationally and you're in charge. But I think they'll look back on this period as an invaluable learning block of 4 games. Which hopefully will set them up well for the Six Nations, when hopefully we might get some more crowds back in, and with the best will in the world, the Six Nations is the Six Nations, and that's when the real pressure comes on. So I think it'll be a really good learning window. Disappointing to lose against England, I'm sure, but great experience. Hugo Keenan, how do you replicate that experience that he got? Jameson Gibson Park, James Lowe, Caelan. James himself captaining the team, running the line out. It's pressure, it's called Test Rugby for a reason, and came up a little bit short, but I'm a pint glass half full. I look at the players who are injured, I look at the young players coming through. I know what they're like at Leinster. Look how well Munster and Ulster are going. Connacht are playing good rugby as well. So I think the future for Ireland's still very strong, personally.
Good. Thanks very much, Stuart.
Okay.
We'll take one more from Ryan, please. We'll leave it there, folks. Thank you.
Stuart, what areas are you looking at to get on top of Scarlets on Sunday? They've obviously gone quite well so far this year. They're second in Conference B behind Munster.
Yeah, I think Scarlets. Cardiff actually was a really good game for us to play, because I felt Cardiff stayed in the fight for the whole 80 minutes. They were a fit team, they were well coached, well prepared. They tested us out on wide-to-wide plays, and we had one or two errors that we needed to fix up. And Scarlets, of all the teams in the conferences, they play the most attractive brand of attacking rugby. I guess, we would obviously back ourselves to score a fair amount of tries ourselves, but Scarlets will be right up there, and we've had some fantastic ding-dong battles against them over the last few years. We actually didn't play them last season. We were due to play them post-COVID, and that game got cancelled. So our last game against them was at the RDS. I think it was 22-17, and then we lost at their place, 23-21. So, they'll remember that. We certainly remember that. We want to make sure we defend well against what's a really good attacking team. But we also just want to keep building on our momentum that we're playing. I mean, people talk about the quality of the competition and how the Irish teams are doing well. But, I would put it back and say how well the Irish teams are playing, and credit to the Munster coaching team, the Ulster playing great rugby, and ourselves. The try we scored in the first play against Cardiff was from a counter-attack that we launched from a box kick that they sent back to us, and suddenly we were attacking down the edges and scoring a try, and that doesn't happen by accident. So we want to keep building our attacking game. We want to be a little bit better defensively, but more importantly, Ryan, is we want to go and win, because we're on an unbeaten record, and we want to preserve that and maintain that before we go into Europe.